Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Women, Peace and Security, Conversations with Thought Leaders, hosted by the Daniel K. Inouye Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies. I'm Saira Yamin. Today's session considers why and how to advance women's roles in institutional structures and leadership. I have the privilege of having two champions of this vision as my guests today, both of whom I watch closely and am so inspired by their work. Their work in proactively enabling women as catalysts of peace, prosperity, and stability has been remarkable. It's been impactful for the US and many other countries around the world. I would first like to introduce our very distinguished alumna, Major General Suzanne Vares-Lum. She is the Mobilization Assistant to the Commander, US Indo-Pacific Command. In this role, General Vares-Lum has also served as the Acting Deputy Commander and Acting Chief of Staff. She has over 34 years of exemplary military service. Her awards include the Defense Superior Service Medal, Legion of Merit, Bronze Star Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Armed Forces Reserve Medal, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon, and the Iraqi Campaign Medal. She's also a 2017 recipient of the Ellis Island Medal of Honor. So impressive, General. Thank you for being here. Also joining us today is Dr. John Byrd, Lab Director at the Defense Prisoners of War Missing in Action Accounting Agency of the US Department of Defense. His work there has been remarkable, and in recent years, he has received extensive media coverage for being instrumental in the recovery of the remains of unreturned American soldiers from North Korea. Additionally, in 2020, Dr. Byrd was awarded the Order of National Security Merit, Samil Medal, by the President Moon Jae-in of the Republic of Korea for scientific support to that country's efforts to identify their war dead. Dr. Byrd currently also serves on the Forensic Advisory Board of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Welcome, Dr. Byrd.
Thank you.
So to begin, my first question is for our Major General, Suzanne Vares-Lum. The Women, Peace and Security agenda, aligned with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, has gained a lot of traction in recent years. Why does it matter to national and international peace and security?
Thank you so much, Dr. Yamin, and it's an honor to be here with Dr. Byrd, and I really appreciate you putting this on, and that is an excellent question to start us with. Here at Indo-Pacific Command, our area responsibility covers 52% of the Earth's surface, filled with historic grievances, historic conflicts, challenges of climate change and natural disasters. So, you can really see that that this affects not just 50% of the population, this affects the entire population, and that other 50% are made up of women. We have, throughout our experience, realized within the US military, along with our allies and partners in the region, that really we cannot do this unless we look through a specific gender lens that accounts for the other 50%. I'd like to, if you don't mind, if I read a quote from our former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dempsey, who wrote Radical Inclusion with Ori Brofman. And he said, when we undercut the contributions of one gender, we do so at our own peril. He said, denying ourselves half the talent, half the resources, half the potential of the population. And as we approach the future challenges, as we've seen throughout this region, we must think rather than fight our way. And we do this by leveraging the best thinking out there, which includes women throughout our region. And so it is very important to security, because the security of our human security, people security, food and security for our national security. And we've seen time and time again, and that's why this past June, the Department of Defense of the United States has implemented its implementation plan and framework that came out directing the Department of Defense because of this very reason. We are in the business of security and maintaining peace and prosperity. And in order to do that, we need to account from those unique gender perspectives of women and also inclusion in the whole defense process.
Thank you for that. Very well said. Dr. Byrd, since we're talking about the role of women in the security sector broadly defined, I would like to hear your thoughts on how women scientists in your organization uniquely contribute to security, or national security rather.
Well, the first thing I would say is that, what the general said in the quote was absolutely right. That in general, if you aren't including women in whatever your enterprise is, you're tossing out half the talent that might be available to you. In my case, it's more than half the talent, because if you look at forensic science in the year 2021, in the younger generation, just coming out of school today, it's 70-80% women. Now, what that means is that you're not going to run successful lab operations without women. You need them, and they are really the workforce of the future. And so it's really important that women have a place in an enterprise like ours, and that we're able to successfully recruit and retain women. Now, I would argue our mission is a humanitarian mission, so we're not directly involved in security, but I think we're indirectly involved because our mission is a missing persons mission, mostly missing service personnel. And it's part of the promise that we make to people like General Vares-Lum that when you put your life in jeopardy for your country, if you go missing, we're not going to forget about you. We're going to have an organization like ours that's going to turn over every stone, look in every corner until we find you and are able to provide you and answers what happened to you back to your family. And I think that indirectly is a security issue because it supports the armed forces and it supports the family members of the armed forces who are so important. We can't do it without women. Our laboratory can't operate tomorrow without women. We're fundamentally dependent upon women. And so I take very seriously the idea is that you have to create the right kind of environment to make a workplace that's attractive to women and women want to be in and contribute to.
Thank you, Dr. Byrd. Thank you for highlighting the pivotal and very important role women play in the humanitarian sector. It's definitely related to security, especially as we're looking at security from a much wider lens than we used to. Coming back to you, General, in your view, what does the meaningful participation of women look like in the defense sector?
Participation of women in the defense sector is not just the right thing to do because we are considering the issues of women, which is just right. I mean, when you talk about humanitarian assistance, human rights, equal opportunity, it's the right thing to do. But it's also the smart thing to do. Because if we evaluate the environment, which is really the first thing in the defense sector we do, we evaluate the environment to look at the unique cultural aspects, the human terrain, we like to say, looking at the unique roles that women have and have play in each different society throughout the region and the world. Women bring that perspective to the table. So I believe those are unique things, but so often in the past, we failed to look at that in the beginning. We've been 20 years in the Middle East, and we relate to need in evaluating women's ability or the ability for our service members to understand the full environment, to So we created these female engagement teams at the last minute, put them together, made up of, truck drivers, people who were not trained in that area at the last minute, until we realized that we needed these female engagement teams to understand the unique civil affairs challenges, or to understand the unique requirements of families, of when we distribute aid. Are we giving it, if we just, distribute it and only men come and it gets sold on the black market, never delivered to families and homes. And then when we do allow women to come, are they ambushed on the way to their point of distribution, to the point of, of home? We have to understand that we need to secure them. So these all, I know that's a real detailed example, but those are the kinds of considerations when we talk about gender perspectives. Or even the role of women in Afghanistan, wondering why a certain well is blown up time and time again, because that's the only place that women can have on their own, or a women's only bazaar. Are you going to insert male infantry into that area, or do you have women? And I think that's why the UN Security Council resolution, the UN has asked peacekeepers to have a certain percentage of their peacekeepers to be female. I'm really proud of the things that Bangladesh has done. They have over 30 years doing peacekeeping operations in Africa, and they have sent a full female team and of engineers. And I've had the opportunity in Dhaka to speak with some of them, and they've said, when they go into some of these communities in Mali or the Congo, many of the young girls come up to them and say, "Oh, are you here as the cook?" So, that role. "Oh no, I'm here to rebuild you a displacement camp. I'm the engineer," or "I'm the team lead to determine what the needs are, to find clean water and healthcare, doctors." And for them, it opens their eyes, gives them hope. When you bring in women into your peacekeeping operations in an unstable location, it brings about this sort of a quiet, or it brings down the escalation scale, because they know you're there for peace and rebuilding. Not all the time, but oftentimes that can be the result. So I think women bring a unique perspective, no matter what culture in place. And I think that's why you can see many peacekeepers for this region in the Pacific going into the Africa region and bringing that kind of peace. And I've had, again, opportunities with Mongolia, Malaysia, all those countries that provide peacekeepers are really working towards that. So I'm really proud to see our partners understanding this issue as well.
General, thank you so much for your response and mentioning all these countries, especially Bangladesh. I really watch Bangladesh very closely, and they have been exemplary in empowering women in the areas of peacekeeping, as you mentioned, in humanitarian assistance, as drivers of economic growth. They are really setting standards for the rest of the world, I believe. So thank you for that. Now, building on your response, and just to, I'm going to request you to expand on it a little bit. In your role as an enabler of women's meaningful participation and leadership at USINDOPACOM, and in your work around the world, what have been some of your challenges and opportunities?
I think the challenge has been the education piece and people understanding what women, peace, and security is really about. I would like to say that the minute that you mention women, oftentimes people associate it with sexual harassment, sexual assault. They're looking at it from a lens of a victim, women being victims, or equal opportunity from the justice area. They're not looking at it in terms of, this really is about smart security for everyone. It's about looking from a gender perspective at the unique challenges we have around the world. And when you explain that to people, when you have the opportunity and the voice to explain that to people, it really changes, I think, people's perspective. But I find it interesting, though, that the word women and women, peace, and security makes many people stop. Oh, this is a feminist movement. Oh, this is another harassment education program. Boy, when you explain it, just the way we're having this dialogue, that's why I so appreciate this dialogue, everyone buys in, because everyone's into security, prosperity, and taking care. I mean, we've seen that, the numbers, as well as our Department of Defense, that those countries that provide opportunities for a voice, education, healthcare, peace, perspectives, that those countries are more stable. All you have to do is look at the corruption index, and you can see where women's participation is a part of it, or boards where there are women equally represented, or post-conflict peacekeeping dialogues. Where women are a part of it, you have more success because it includes all people. And I think, that is been the challenge and opportunity. But we've had many opportunities. Before COVID, Australia was going to host a Women, Peace and Security Chief of Defense Conference. So we hosted, as you know, you've been aware of that, the Chief of Defense Conference. So, all the chiefs of defense in our region are men, but to have that CHOD's Women, Peace and Security that Australia was going to host, I'm hopeful that when COVID clears up, they will have it. And everywhere I've gone for bilateral dialogues throughout the region, many of these leaders, chiefs of Army, chiefs of Air Force, have often showcased their female leaders to show that they are working towards this because they understand how very important it is, which is really exciting.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I completely agree with you. The visibility of women in leadership positions is absolutely indispensable. We need a lot of that. So Dr. Byrd, coming to you, I would like to ask you the same question. As an enabler of women's participation and leadership in your organization, what have been some of the challenges and opportunities for women as well as managers in the position where you have a significant workforce of women?
Well, I guess I'll start with saying I've been with the laboratory for almost 23 years. When I came to work for the lab, we had about a dozen scientists, and it was mostly men. We had several women, but the majority for sure was male. And, it was in an Army organization. It was a kind of a male-dominated culture. Look at us today. The laboratory is about 135 people and more than half women. We have more women than men, and the management of the laboratory is half male, half female. And then at the next tier down, we have project team leaders, and they're nearly all female. I think all but one. So we have maybe 8 or 9 female project leaders and maybe one male. And it shows you over time we're transitioning to more females in the organization and naturally more females in the leadership. In terms of how to encourage more female involvement in the organization, the first most important thing is to hire women. And then the second most important thing is to promote women. If you do those two things, then many other things will fall into place so that women feel comfortable in that atmosphere and want to stay, hopefully stay for a career and work their career with us is our ultimate goal. And what you find is some of the things that maybe you don't think about generally, but when you have female managers, then they're role models for the younger women. When you're doing hiring, we use hiring panels. If you have females on hiring panels, the interviews are more fair to female applicants. And, a lot of people, a lot of men, I probably have been one in the past too. A lot of men think, it doesn't matter if I'm a male or a female, I can interview somebody and I can do an assessment and I can be fair. But when you have an all-male interview panel, for example, you just can't, it's human nature, you can't help yourself. You're looking for somebody who would give an answer the way you would give an answer. You just can't help it. If it's all males, a lot of times it's not going to be fair because a female might give an answer that's a perfectly good answer, but the males just think that's not the way I would have answered that. But when you have females on the panel, then you have somebody who can say, well, I think that makes sense, and here's why. And so you end up creating really a culture in the workplace that is more open and fair and transparent, and people feel, they feel when they come to work, everybody feels that they have a fair chance to thrive and to eventually be up for promotion. So that's the atmosphere we want in our organization. And it's not easy to achieve that if you currently don't have that in your organization. But I'll tell you the two most important things: hire women and promote them.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Byrd. You mentioned culture. I'd like to hear a little bit more from you on this issue, because it's often seen as a barrier to women's integration in organizations, and it may be the case in yours as well. You mentioned their hiring and promotion being so important. Now, in the Indo-Pacific, women tend to have very traditional roles, and I can imagine culture, and this is also what I hear from them, that culture is often a barrier to even recruitment in security sector organizations. What advice would you give to stakeholders in the Indo-Pacific? How may they negotiate change in environments which are a lot more traditional?
Well, I would say you have to work carefully through that. That's a little bit of a complex pathway to go down, because I am an anthropologist, and while I don't do the cultural anthropology, I certainly had to be trained in it when I was a younger man. And what I do know is that the last thing in the world most human societies want is an American, for example, coming into their home and saying, okay, everything you're doing is wrong, and let me tell you how to do it the correct way. So you can't come in with all the answers and try to just impose them on people. I think a more productive pathway is to try to help people see the value in doing some things differently, and probably in a more careful, incremental way. So, for example, I think a lot of the women that work in our organization, they go to the field all over the world, to include in Oceania and in Southeast Asia. And, typically there's only one or two women working with maybe 20 men in a field setting. Sometimes there's only one woman and it's all men. And the host nation people working with them see by example how our team members are treating the female scientist. She's the equivalent of an officer in terms of protocol and respect, even though she's a civilian. She is designing the work plan, and she's overseeing the work in a field setting. And when people in these host nations, the officials and the workers, they see how much respect the U.S. team members are treating the woman who's the scientist in charge, that in and of itself, I think, rubs off. And we have not generally had problems with people in other countries treating the women from our organization disrespectfully. I can't say it would never happen, but generally speaking, we have, I think, a very good experience with this. And I think number one reason is because of the way the American team members are treating the female scientists in front of the host nation officials.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences. Very, very thoughtful. General, I have the same question for you. Please share your thoughts about culture. And as you work with different countries in the Indo-Pacific, what are some of the challenges? And do you think they can influence cultural change? What advice would you have for them?
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Byrd's assessment on, being very careful and cautious and being that American. I was the first female to be the J5 MA, which we do a lot of engagement throughout the region in bilateral dialogues. And many of these Southeast Asian countries, Northeast Asian countries. And a comment that somebody made before I took it, a little concerned because I'd be the first female to engage with another general officer. And I can tell you, I've never had an issue, ever. We deal with so many countries, and it's just as Dr. Byrd said, they recognize our culture and free and open societies. I think, being the lead of these bilateral dialogues, showing honor and respect, I don't think any culture doesn't respect humanity or the people. And cultures change over time. We adopt other people's, the good things that we see. And I hope that this is one of the good things that they see, is to leverage the talent of their whole country. Because, we don't have we're not the only country that have talented women. Every country has talented women, and they know it. These countries know it, and they are starting to get smart on it and tapping into those amazing resources. So proud to have had a Women, Peace and Security Quad webinar, where we included, India, the admiral who's in charge of all the medical in the Southern District of India. She was on there, the first female to ever lead a task force, combined task force for our Rim of the Pacific exercise, which is the largest maritime exercise in this region, just this year during COVID. And she ran it on Captain Philippa Hay, and as well as a Navy captain who's in charge of all the logistics for the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. And many people, when you talk about culture, even within the US, said, I didn't know that Japan had female fighter pilots. I didn't know that Japan has Admiral Kondo as I didn't know that they have a women captain of a warship, a destroyer. Many people don't know that. So these countries are tapping into the talent that they see. And even, here, I told someone recently, we had a call with all the U.S. Army female general officers. We have active guard reserve, we have a total of 70. Most people don't know that, but you're talking about a 1 million person soldier army, right? So out of the 600 general officers, there are 70 that are women. So these opportunities, we've had many 4-stars, many senior leaders, combatant command, deputy commanders, and all of these countries see that. And I think it helps them to reflect on the talent they have within their own countries. And so really, I think that respect and dignity for all people, I think, can transcend culture.
That is so heartwarming. Thank you for your optimism. I'm very, very encouraged to hear that. And I agree with you. I think that this agenda is picking up a lot of traction, and there will be change. And I know that in some cultures, it's more of a challenge, but we are getting there. So thank you for that. Now, before we close our session, I have one more ask of both of you. Here's a quote: leadership is action, not position. To inspire our listeners, please share with us a moment from your lifelong experience where you enabled change without having the title or authority to do so. General Lum, would you like to go first?
I will go back to the culture thing, Dr. Yamin. So leadership, of course, to me is not just title. It definitely is on how we can inspire, how we show that we are loyal. We have, in the Army, we have this acronym LDRSHIP, and not because we can't spell culturally. It's the acronym because we like acronyms in the Army. But it's about loyalty, duty, respect, the service, honor, integrity, personal courage. Those, again, transcend culture. People know leaders, but leaders can lead you in the right direction or the wrong direction. Those who have, outside of their self-interest, those leaders that genuinely care about people, genuinely care about the mission, the welfare, the greater good, that is very evident no matter what culture you come from. And whenever I would lead or lead our organization with all of these different components where I didn't have direct authority, but we go into a country and we can lead the dialogue in a direction. I have no authority. I just represent the United States, and some may argue that might be some, but not really, because you're in their sovereign territory. But to be able to show that you genuinely care about the outcomes of the dialogue, to genuinely show that you care about the people and the place, the land, and their own interests as well as your own, and where we can meet, I think people can sense it. People are smart. They know when you genuinely care. And I think we all know the leaders that we want to follow because we're inspired, or someone who just tries to impose it on you. And I think that's the beauty of a free and open Indo-Pacific strategy we have. It's about freedom to ensure that everybody prospers, and it's not just your own self-interest.
Thank you for that very powerful message about being authentic, being genuine, about caring. That's how we can connect with humanity. And I think that's something anyone can do anywhere in the world, regardless of your background, regardless of your position. Thank you for that. Over to you, Dr. Byrd.
Well, I would say that even if you have a title, everybody works for somebody. So you never are a fully autonomous, omnipotent being. and I guess my point in that is that I think that in my professional life, in my professional career, I've always been willing to try to speak up when I think that something could be improved upon. And I'm willing to speak up to my superiors just as readily as I'm willing to speak up to my subordinates, respectfully, of course, to both. But being willing to work on an issue, whether you're in control of it or not, you see a problem, you know a solution. If you're willing to work on that, you can make the world a better place. You can make your workplace a better place. You could make your organization a better organization, or you might make your relationship with another country a better relationship, just by what you can do from where you sit. So I would encourage anyone, whether you're in charge of a lot of things or you're not in charge of anything but yourself, to not wait until you have a lot of authority to try to affect change, to try to affect change from wherever you sit.
Those are golden words. Really, thank you. Thank you both for your fascinating and very profound insights and experiences around the world and in the US. I would like to thank you for joining us. We are so privileged. I would like to thank our viewers for taking their time to listen to us also. And I would especially like to commend you for your role, your championship in advancing women's contributions to peace and security. We need people like you. Thank you so much.